Welcome to the Histories of Northamptonshire podcast series, and this episode number 2. Recorded on location, each episode tells the story of one of the many and varied objects which are the focus of the exhibition A History of Northamptonshire in 100 Objects. The exhibition runs at the Northampton Museum and Art Gallery between the 20th of September 2025 and February 2026. Selected by local individuals, heritage groups and the museum's own curators, each object tells a different story from the county's past. And so, to our guest for this episode.
My name's Ian Clark, and I'm the coordinator for the Northamptonshire regionally important geological sites, and also known as local geological sites.
I love the word interesting.
Interesting or important.
What do you have in the exhibition for us to talk about here?
I've got a piece of Northampton Sand Formation Ironstone, which I thought ought to go in the exhibition because Northamptonshire has a long history, and this piece of stone is around 175 million years old.
Elsewhere within the exhibition, we hear about limestone, sandstone, ironstone. What is ironstone?
Ironstone is a sedimentary rock which has varying proportions of different iron minerals in it. And as far as Northamptonshire is concerned, it's part of a band of rock that extends from round about just south of Towcester right up to Lincoln. The ironstone has been a very important part of Northamptonshire's industrial past, although you probably wouldn't know it now. I chose this object partly because it reminded me of my childhood when I lived in Wellingborough and used to go down to Nest Lane train spotting, where within sight of the bridge I used to go to were the Wellingborough furnaces and the sidings full of iron ore tipplers waiting to go to be burnt up in the furnaces.
So in terms of Northamptonshire's history, we're talking about an era of, heavy industry.
Yes. I mean, at one point there were 11 furnaces throughout the county, from one down at Nether Hayford up to the big one at Corby. These days there's virtually no sign of what was a major industry for about 150 years.
Ironstone quarrying is celebrated very close to Wellingborough. If you go to Urchester Country Park, yes. There is a very dedicated group of people who will tell the story. I remember being amazed when somebody told me that Northamptonshire once had a Mediterranean climate, and I think that has something to do with what was going on to Britain when this formation was formed.
That's right, yes. We were down round about where the South Mediterranean is. The climate was very different. It was much hotter. How the iron was formed is a bit of a mystery. It was a time of quite intense heat, and they think that iron was leached from the adjoining landmass into a seaway, which is where Northamptonshire was. It was part of this narrow seaway between two landmasses. But then it was subject to lots of chemical processes post-deposition.
So we're talking about millions of years ago.
Yeah, this is a long time ago.
When the world was a very different place.
Yes.
And of course, Britain wasn't Britain in those days. Britain was in that state, making its way up to where it is now, and the globe is constantly moving. Do we know when somebody made the connection between a piece of stone that could actually be transformed into metal?
Well, it's interesting to think that the Iron Age communities in Northamptonshire actually used this stuff. The Romans certainly used it, and it was used in medieval times in Northamptonshire, and then it seemed to disappear. Then in 1851, at the Great Exhibition, Colonel Arbuthnot from Woodford House displayed some Northampton sand ironstone, and it must have made quite an impression because it was up against the Koh-i-Noor diamond, amongst many other wonders. And the whole thing seemed to take off from then. Thomas Butlin in, I think it was 1852, had a trial blast furnace in Northampton and then moved on to Wellingborough and set up furnaces there. And on it went until 1980.
You talk about Ironstone, the Iron Age and communities. Where would those communities have been based? Would they have lived on top of where the rock was? Would they have lived by the River Nen? Because, of course, the Romans colonised the area or invaded the area, and they set up camp and set up cities, which we know of today because they're still there. But the Romans, you say, worked the ironstone to become iron. Did they just simply take the technology of the Iron Age and use it for their own purposes?
I assume so. I mean, the Romans must have been using iron for some time from a military point of view, if nothing else, from weapons. And there were quite significant Iron Age communities in the Nen Valley. So the ironstone could have been near the surface, and the Iron Age communities just used it.
The onset of the iron-making age, the Iron Age, transformed Northamptonshire.
Yes, that's right, yes.
Ian, what is your reaction to the piece of iron that you have in your hand at the moment? I have spoken to other guest curators within the exhibition who have stone of some kind that they have curated for the exhibition, and they have a very personal reaction to the stone. Is it just a piece of stone to you, or do you have a particular interest in it as a person with your own skills and interests?
I quite like this, partly because it's got so much in it. It displays what's called box stone structure, which are these concentric rings of different iron minerals, some harder, some softer, and that reflects all the chemical processes and fluid movements that went on in the deposited iron over a long period of time.
And that would have been a commonplace feature of that kind of stone?
This seems to be a feature of the Northampton sand ironstone. I mean, this is a small piece, but you do get them sort of about a foot square. You can see them in the gullet at Twywell Hills and Dales, quite good ones. The Northampton sand ironstone has an iron content of about 25 to 30%, which sounds fairly reasonable, but it needed to be improved. So once quarried, they used to burn it in a process called calcining to burn off volatiles and impurities. So that enriched it to about 40%. But as time went on, we started importing iron ore from other places, Sweden and Australia, and some of their ores are 60% plus iron, so that needs less processing. You know, it's easier to deal with than an impure one.
You mentioned that the area of ironstone in the United Kingdom spread through Northamptonshire up into Lincolnshire. So relatively speaking, we're talking about a rich deposit of that kind of stone. You talk about 25%, which then needed to be improved. Having said that, though, did Northamptonshire have a particularly strong reputation for good quality iron ore, which made it a prized raw material? I
think as much as anything, it was to do with the development of the railways and access to other raw materials, because you'd need your coal for the furnaces, and it was easier to transport the coal than the iron ore, probably.
Why do you feel this particular piece of ironstone should be in the exhibition?
I think it reflects Northamptonshire's deep time history, and then its links with more modern Northamptonshire in terms of the industry.
So making the connection from millions of years ago right up to the present day, the common thread is actually the ironstone. You've brought a piece of Northamptonshire into the exhibition for us, therefore.
Yes, that's right, yes.
Ian, it's been an absolute pleasure. Thank you for telling us the story.
Thank you.
Thank you for listening to this Histories of Northamptonshire podcast. If you would like to find out more about the objects or listen to other episodes in the series, go to www.northamptonmuseums.com. Alternatively, you can visit the Northampton Museum and Art Gallery, where you can see the A History of Northamptonshire in 100 Objects exhibition for yourself. The Histories of Northamptonshire project is funded by Arts Council England as part of the National Portfolio Programme.